The bell above the door had barely finished ringing when Tae-min Kang felt his whole body go still. He had walked into that bakery on Cascade Road, expecting nothing more than a pickup, a dozen cupcakes for a supplier's retirement party. A quick errand before his afternoon was swallowed by contracts and appointments. Instead, he found himself frozen in the doorway, staring at a woman he had spent 5 years trying to forget. Simone Carter looked up from behind the counter, flour dusted across her fingers, and for a moment neither of them moved. The espresso machine hissed somewhere behind her. A customer laughed at a corner table. Life kept moving around them, while the two of them stood completely outside of it. Then a small voice called out from the back room, "Mama, can I have the one with sprinkles?" A boy came running out, maybe 5 years old, quick on his feet, full of the kind of energy only children carry. He stopped the second he saw the stranger in the doorway. Tae-min looked at him and felt the air leave his lungs, the boy's eyes, his jaw, the exact tilt of his head when he was thinking. Tae-min had seen this face before. He saw it every morning in the mirror. Nobody said a word. The clock on the wall kept ticking, and somewhere in that silence, a man who ran one of the most powerful organizations on the West Coast realized his entire life had just cracked open in a bakery in Atlanta. Before this moment ever happened, though, there was a boy standing at a funeral, 11 years old, watching his older brother's face carefully, the way children learn to read danger before they understand what danger even means. Tae-min was 19 when his father died. Their family ran Kang Enterprises, a name that showed up on shipping manifests and real estate deeds across Koreatown in Los Angeles, and quietly ran something much larger underneath all of it. When the syndicate's elders gathered to decide who would take his father's place, they didn't choose Do-hyun, the older brother, the one who had waited his entire life for that seat. They chose Tae-min instead, sharper mind, steadier hands, a memory that never let go of who could be trusted and who couldn't. Do-hyun smiled at the announcement. He shook his brother's hand in front of everyone, and underneath that smile, something in him started keeping score. Before we go further, if this story has already pulled you in, take a second and hit that subscribe button, because what happens next changes everything you think you know about this family. Stick around, because the real story is only just beginning. 5 years before the moment in that bakery, a young woman named Simone Carter walked into the Kang estate in Palos Verdes, carrying one suitcase and a letter of recommendation from a staffing agency. She had been a nursing assistant in Inglewood until a hospital merger cut her hours in half. She needed steady work, and housekeeping at a wealthy estate paid enough to actually put something aside, money she sent home to her mother in Baton Rouge every single month without fail. She wasn't impressed by money. That was the first thing Tae-min noticed about her. Everyone else in that house adjusted themselves around him, lowered their voices, watched their posture. Simone simply did her work, spoke her mind, and once told him flatly that his tea was too bitter because he never let it steep long enough. Just like everything else about you, probably. He laughed out loud. It surprised him. People who worked for him rarely made him laugh. What grew between them took its time. 2 years of quiet conversations after midnight, when the house had gone dark and the only light left was in the kitchen. He noticed she skipped meals to save money and started having groceries delivered to her apartment under a name that wasn't his own. She was the only person who ever asked how he was doing, not how the business was doing. He fell for her because she never once asked him for anything at all. He kept the relationship hidden, not out of shame, out of fear of exactly what his brother might do with it. He believed secrecy would keep her safe. He was wrong about that, and it would cost both of them more than he ever imagined. Do-hyun found out during a business trip Tae-min took to Portland, 4 days locked away finalizing a shipping contract, completely out of contact. That same week, Simone learned she was pregnant. She chose not to tell him before he left. She didn't want to distract him during a negotiation where one wrong move could get people killed. She thought she was protecting him. That silence became the opening Do-hyun had been waiting 11 years for. A note came under her door at 3 in the morning. 3 sentences, no signature. Leave before he returns, or your mother in Baton Rouge finds out exactly what this family does to people who become inconvenient. Simone didn't wait to find out if it was a bluff. She packed one bag, took what savings she had, and disappeared into Atlanta, a city where nobody asked questions about a woman starting over. She named her son Malachi, meaning messenger, because she promised herself he would always know exactly who he was, no matter how far she had to run to protect him. Tae-min spent 8 months searching for her, using every resource his organization had. He never found her. Do-hyun told him she had simply left, that staff sometimes did that, overwhelmed and gone without a word. Tae-min, grieving something he couldn't fully name, eventually believed him. For 5 years, that lie sat quietly underneath everything, while Do-hyun used his brother's heartbreak to tighten his own grip inside the organization he had once been denied. Now here he was, standing in a doorway in Atlanta, looking at the son he never knew existed, and the woman who had carried that secret alone for 5 years, just to keep her child alive. "How old is he?" Tae-min asked, his voice lower than he meant it to be. Simone didn't look away. 5, she said. The word landed between them like a verdict neither of them could take back. If you've ever had to make an impossible choice to protect someone you love, you already understand what Simone was carrying in that moment. Drop a comment below and let us know, because stories like this only matter when we talk about them together. And if you haven't already, now is the time to subscribe, because what Tae-min finds out next is going to change the direction of this entire story. Tae-min stepped further into the bakery, his eyes moving from Simone to the boy still frozen by the doorway to the back room. Malachi studied him with the serious, unfiltered attention only children seem to have, the kind of look that misses nothing and forgives nothing yet. "You knew," Tae-min said. It wasn't a question. "I knew," Simone answered, 2 days before you left for Portland. And you said nothing." "I said nothing because I didn't know yet what your family was capable of. Then I found out." She reached beneath the counter and placed a small, folded piece of paper on the marble surface between them. Old, creased from being opened and closed too many times to count. "Read it," she said. "Then tell me you still don't understand why I ran." Tae-min picked it up slowly. He unfolded it once, twice, and felt something cold settle into his chest the moment his eyes reached the handwriting. He knew that handwriting. He had seen it on business documents, on family letters, on notes left on his own desk more times than he could count. It wasn't a stranger's threat. It was his brother's. For a long moment, Tae-min just stood there, holding a piece of paper that had rewritten 5 years of his life in 3 sentences. He read it again, hoping the words might rearrange themselves into something less painful. They didn't. Some truths only get heavier the longer you look at them, and this was one of them. "He told me, you left on your own," Tae-min said quietly. "He told me not to bother looking too hard. He made sure I couldn't be found," Simone said. "I had no name that mattered, no family close by, nothing but what I'd saved and a child I refused to gamble with. I wasn't running from you, I was running from what your family was capable of." Tae-min folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his coat pocket before Simone could stop him. "That's mine," she said. "It's proof," he answered. "I'll bring it back." She let him keep it. She could see something happening behind his eyes, the slow collapse of a story he had believed for 5 years, brick by brick, coming down at once. Before we go further, if you've made it this far, you already know this story is building towards something big. Hit that like button now, because the next part is where everything comes to a head, and I promise you will not want to miss it. Tae-min didn't go home first. He drove straight to the office tower on Wilshire Boulevard, where Kang Enterprises kept its top floor, the one with no name on the directory downstairs. Do-hyun was at his desk when his brother walked in and shut the door behind him. Do-hyun looked up. He read his brother's face in less than a second, and he didn't ask what was wrong. That was how Tae-min knew. A man with nothing to hide asks questions. A guilty man already knows the answer. Tae-min placed the letter on the desk. Do-hyun didn't touch it. 11 years, Tae-min said quietly. That's how long you waited to do something like this to me. Do-hyun leaned back in his chair, unbothered, almost relieved to finally say it out loud. I protected this family. You were about to throw away everything our father built for a woman who cleaned our floors. She was carrying my son. She was a liability you were too blinded to see. His voice stayed calm, reasonable, the voice of a man who had rehearsed this moment in his head for years, certain it would one day come. I did what needed to be done. Tae-min stood there for a long moment, looking at the brother he had trusted above anyone else in his life, the man who sat beside him through every difficult decision, who watched him search for Simone for 8 months and said nothing. You're finished, Tae-min said. Effective today, you have nothing left here. Do-hyun rose slowly from his chair. You'll regret this, he said, his voice suddenly quieter, sharper. You have no idea what you just started. Tae-min walked out without looking back. He had no idea, in that moment, exactly how right his brother was. For the next 2 weeks, Tae-min showed up at Simone's bakery every single morning. He didn't push, he didn't demand answers or make promises he couldn't yet prove. He sat at the small table by the window, drank the coffee she handed him without being asked what he wanted, and left when she needed the table for a paying customer. On the 4th morning, Malachi climbed onto the stool across from him without being invited, studying him with the same serious eyes his mother had. Your hair, the boy said. It's the same color as mine at the edges. Tae-min looked at him carefully. Yes, he said. It runs in our family, a long time back. Like a superpower? Something like that. Malachi nodded, satisfied, and climbed back down to finish his drawing. Simone watched the whole exchange from behind the counter and said nothing, but something long frozen in her chest shifted, just slightly, like a door easing open on a hinge that hadn't moved in years. 12 days after Tae-min first walked through that door, Malachi came home from school unusually quiet. He sat at the back counter while Simone cleaned her equipment, and it took him 7 full minutes before he finally spoke. Mama, a lady came to my school today. She said she knows my daddy. She said I'm going to visit them soon, at his new house. Simone set down the cloth in her hand. Visit, she repeated carefully. Yeah. Malachi's voice grew smaller. Mama, is my daddy building a new family without us? Simone crossed the room and knelt in front of her son, holding his face gently in both hands. Listen to me, she said. You are never a visitor in your own family. You hear me? You belong wherever you are, completely, always. She picked up her phone the moment he nodded and called a number she had saved days earlier. Tae-min picked up before the second ring. A woman went to Malachi's school today, Simone said, her voice level and precise, the way it got when fear turned into something colder and far more dangerous. She told my son he'd be visiting his father's new house soon. She went after my child. Tae-min, I need you to handle this. Now. We're getting close to the part of this story you've all been waiting for, so if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications, because you will not want to miss what Tae-min does next to protect his son. And if this story has moved you even a little so far, drop a comment and let us know, because these stories exist for all of us to learn something from. Tae-min didn't hesitate. Within the hour, his head of security traced the woman back to a storage facility on the edge of Atlanta, hidden behind 3 shell companies that eventually led back to a name connected to Do-hyun's old associates. He didn't bring an army. He brought 4 men, each one chosen for precision, not spectacle. They moved fast, quiet, and controlled. Every minute mattered, and Tae-min knew it better than anyone in that car. Malachi was sitting on a wooden crate in a back room when the door opened, arms wrapped around his knees, not crying, just waiting. He looked up, and the moment he saw Tae-min, his whole small body released the tension he had been holding since the moment he was taken. Tae-min crossed the room in 4 steps and knelt in front of his son. "Are you hurt?" "No," Malachi said, studying him with those same serious eyes. "I knew you would come." Something moved through Tae-min's chest he didn't have a word for. He picked up his son for the first time in his life and didn't put him down, not once, the entire way out of that building. At the hospital later that night, Tae-min sat on the edge of a bed with his ribs freshly wrapped, an injury he hadn't mentioned to anyone until Malachi was safely asleep in the next room. Simone arrived 17 minutes after his call, found her son first, held him for a long time without speaking, and only then turned to look at the man sitting quietly on that hospital bed. "You didn't tell me you were hurt," she said. Malachi was the priority. She looked at him a moment longer than she needed to, then she said the thing she had been carrying for 5 years, the thing she finally allowed herself to say out loud. "I forgave you a long time ago. I had to. I couldn't raise your son carrying that much weight." She paused. "But I need you to understand something before anything else happens between us. I'm not the same woman who left your family's house 5 years ago. I built something on my own. I don't need saving. I need someone who stands beside me, not in front of me." "I know," Tae-min said quietly. "And I'm not here to stand in front of what you built. I'm here because Malachi deserves his father, and because I've been half a person since the morning I came home and you were gone." He looked at her steadily. "I hid you once. I let the people around me make you feel like a secret. That was never who you were to me. That was my failure, not yours." 6 weeks later, Simone's Bakery opened its second location on Ponce de Leon Avenue. Floor-to-ceiling windows, warm light, the smell of cinnamon and butter filling a space she had designed, down to the last detail, entirely on her own. Tae-min arrived early, holding Malachi's hand at the door. He walked to the counter and placed something small on the marble between them. A ring. "I did this wrong the first time," he said. "I loved you in silence and left you standing in it alone. I'm asking you now, in your own shop, in front of everything you built, on your terms, not mine." Malachi looked up at his mother with the seriousness only a 5-year-old fully committed to a moment can manage. "Mama," he said, "I think it's a yes." Simone looked at the ring. She looked at Tae-min. She looked at her son. And for the first time in 5 years, she smiled the real one. The one she thought she had lost somewhere back in Palos Verdes. The one that had always been worth fighting for. Love that hides in silence never stays safe. It only delays the moment the truth finally comes looking for you. And when it does, the only thing that matters is whether you're brave enough to stand in it, fully, without excuses. If this story meant something to you, don't scroll past it in silence either. Hit subscribe, turn on your notifications so you never miss a story like this one again, and tell us in the comments what part of this story stayed with you the longest. Someone out there needs to hear it today.